We haggle at the taxi stand and settle with Alexei, using a combination of grunts and sign language and Meir's Google Translate. Alexei is 80 years old if a day, and his car smells like it has been steeped in tobacco for the same amount of time. His hands are thick and calloused on the wheel, and I think him rather beautiful in an ugly way. We sputter out of the city and back into the countryside for 2 hours. Sea and Meir graduates sparkling Before we come to the page, before the first word is ever written down or read or listened to, there is a longing to connect. My name is Charlie Mehrhoff, your host here at Before the Page, a podcast featuring poetry, parable, fiction, and words to echo our longing. Welcome, friends and listeners, to this episode of Before the Page, December 21st, 2025, winter solstice, first day of the month of Tevet, 5786. Our theme today is radical, full-hearted devotion. In the early 1700s, in a remote hut in the Carpathian Mountains, a worker of wonders, Rabbi Israel ben Eliezer, came into this world. As a child, Israel, son of Eliezer, abandoned the village schoolroom to run feral in the woods, where he learned the speech of animals, birds, trees, stones, and flowers. As a man, Israel learned the mysteries of Kabbalah, yet he found himself unable to embrace the stifled life of a religious scholar. Shunning the rabbinical infighting, the constant arguments over the minutiae of the law, Israel withdrew to the mountains to earn his bread as a lime burner. And it was in those mountains that he wandered alone, often for many days at a time, absorbed in states of enlightenment that only union with the beloved brings. He came down from the mountains to the town of Medzhybizh, where he taught others how to live with abounding joy, with joy in all life, in every living thing, for this was, he claimed, the highest form of worship. These words from Meir Levin. The woods were holy, and the fields, every stone and blade of grass contained a spark of living soul. Every act of living, breathing, eating, walking should be accomplished with fervor, joy, ecstasy, for every act spoke of God. He did not violate tradition, he enlarged it. He was observant of every point of the law, and he revered the house of prayer. But he said again that divinely simple truth that becomes lost in the ritual of every religion. He said that the full-hearted desire to worship was more important than the form or place of worship. Disciples gathered about him. Soon legends began to grow of the wondrous deeds and teachings of Rabbi Israel. And then he was called the Baal Shem Tov, which means the master of the wondrous name. Despite the opposition of many noted rabbis who accused him of ignorance, of wizardry, of Sabbath violation, the number of Israel's followers grew, for his teaching had that beauteous simplicity that goes directly to the hearts of the common folk. The secrets and delights of heaven were no longer reserved for the scholars who could pass all their days and nights in the house of study. The water carrier, the mule driver, they could gather around the long table in the hut of the master and take part in the discussion. The Baal Shem Tov's great-grandson, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, the first and last rabbi of Breslov, continued teaching the ecstatic way through parables, through storytelling. Shortly before his passing, Rabbi Nachman moved to Uman, then within Poland, now part of the Ukraine. After several generations, the Hasidim, the followers of the ecstatic way of the Baal Shem Tov, numbered half the Jewry of Eastern Europe. Today, Before the Page is honored to bring you a true life-telling prose composed by a full-hearted one, Idit Miriam Codish. An observant woman, wife, mother of 4, Director of Development and International Partnerships at the Makal Sela Forum, using technology to protect women threatened with domestic violence. Idit lives in the valley of Elah, Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, right where the shepherd boy took out Goliath. What Idit's words focus upon, how she lives simultaneously wild and grounded, how she tells it, everyday honest. There's an ecstatic transference of down-to-earth holiness that somehow occurs while reading Idit. We here at Before the Page believe that both the Baal Shem Tov and Rabbi Nachman, the first and last rabbi of Breslov, because of the likes of Idit Miriam Codish, are dancing somewhere, dancing hard. So here we go with The Night Before Creation, or Midnight in Medzhybizh, by Idit Miriam Codish. I am in Uman, and I feel a deep physical craving to visit the Baal Shem Tov in Medzhybizh on Erev Rosh Hashanah, the last day of the year. Like the urge to smoke that one last cigarette before Shabbat. My 17-year-old daughter, C, is up for an adventure. So is Sparky, a veteran of holy pilgrimages, and Mare, whom we just met the day before, but whose chaotic energy holds an interesting promise. There are plenty of Ukrainian drivers standing on the street next to their rusting Ladas and Opals and Skodas, trunks tied shut with string and different colored doors. They know their crowd, and they know it is Erev Rosh Hashanah, the eve of the new year. They confidently charge $250 per carload and are happily packing Hasidim in for the round-trip ride to Medzhybizh. After some attempts at haggling, we decide to take our budget selves and experiment with the local bus system instead. This is difficult because only Mare has purchased a data plan and none of us speak Ukrainian. We walk up the street to the central bus station after asking around and catching Wi-Fi under a certain tree. We board a bus bound for Poland. The buses operate by assigned seating, and C and I are together next to the bathrooms, which quickly start to smell exactly like how you think a public multi-country bus bathroom would smell. Sparky is by the front of the bus, Mare in the back. Apparently, Ukrainians and Poles follow seating charts with military precision. No switching, no thinking about switching. Just sit where you're told. I feel some sort of twitch of ingrained Jewish trauma. Something about doing what I am told in an Eastern Europe transport situation makes me feel off. I take out my Tehillim, Psalms, and watch the scenery. Daydream about what my life might look like if I lived in a random Ukrainian countryside. Peaceful, maybe mostly lonely. I could grow potatoes and sunflowers. Finally learn to knit. Would I take my family with me, or am I alone in this fantasy? How many months of the year would I be snowed in? C is watching Black Panther on the tiny screen built into the back of the seat, without sound because there are no headphones. She rolls her eyes at me when I speculate out loud what it might be like to live in a random Ukrainian countryside. Ukrainian roads are like an aggressive chiropractic treatment you didn't ask for. And 4 hours later, spines realigned, we get out in Vinnytsia, this mid-sized hub on the banks of the Bug River. C wants to stop and get coffee. Like me, she has a passion for stopping and drinking coffee at picturesque cafes in foreign cities. Professor Ornstein flashes through my head, and while I can't remember exactly what it was he taught us about Vinnytsia, I hear his voice say Vinnytsia in my head very clearly. There are no buses to Medzhybizh. We haggle at the taxi stand and settle with Alexei using a combination of grunts and sign language and Mayor's Google Translate. Alexei is 80 years old if a day, and his car smells like it has been steeped in tobacco for the same amount of time. His hands are thick and calloused on the wheel, and I think him rather beautiful in an ugly way. We sputter out of the city and back into the countryside for 2 hours. C and Mayor match wits, while Sparky and I drift in and out of the conversation. I can't remember exactly what we talked about, but I do remember some argument over whether the earth is flat or round and laughing until I cried. We pass the Letitchev fish market, and Sparky and I, shambling dark, long-lost Yiddish cousins, desperately want to stop and get some stinky fish to snack on, smoked carp or pickled herring. C and Mayor object. In any case, we can't communicate quickly enough with Alexei, who might be deaf but also maybe just doesn't want to talk to us, so we zoom past the market without stopping. If the road so far has been rough, the turnoff to Medzhybizh itself is like the chiropractor's angry, unlicensed brother-in-law who cracks bones behind the village pub. Alexei mutters darkly but follows Sparky's directions to the Baal Shem Tov's mikveh, his ritual bath, across town from the Baal Shem Tov's Tzion, his gravesite. We ask Alexei to wait for us, then drive us to the other side of town. He says yes for $20. We say no thank you and turn into the mikveh courtyard. Sparky and Mayor go to dip, while C and I hang out for a minute in a surprisingly large women's restroom. Surprising both in its size and in that there is one at all. We are literally the only women amongst thousands of men. There is even a hairdryer attached to the wall in front of an enormous floor-to-ceiling length mirror. C and I walk out of the courtyard and up the hill to the Baal Shem Tov's well. The Baal Shem Tov's custom was to pray outside in the fields and forests. There, suspended between heaven and earth, he would pour out his heart in prayer. One day, he went out with a disciple. They wanted to wash their hands before praying, but their water jar was empty. His disciple recounted that he saw the Baal Shem Tov fall with his hands and feet spread out on the ground and cry out for water, or barring that, death, for he would rather die than pray without washing his hands, and would rather die than miss a prayer. According to this legend, a living spring suddenly gushed out of the ground, a spring whose waters continue to flow to this day, a spring serving as a testimony to the power of prayer, or maybe to God's desire for life. Since then, and to this day, even the non-Jewish residents of Medzhybizh and the surrounding villages swear by the water's healing properties. C and I drink the ice-cold water straight from the source until our teeth ache. We fill up empty water bottles we brought specifically for this purpose, and stomachs sloshing, squish back down the hill to the mikveh where we meet Sparky and Meir. We sparingly sip Baal Shem Tov water as we begin our trek across the last remaining shtetl, little Jewish town in Ukraine. It is insanely beautiful and otherworldly, and I feel the Baal Shem Tov calling me across time and space. There are geese in yards with broken down wooden fences, goats tied up on corners, fruit trees drooping apples, and grapevines and jujubes hanging over open sheds. Following Sparky's instructions, we turned down a street, and suddenly a 20-something developmentally delayed woman with short brown hair hugging her skull runs out of her yard towards us, eyes gleaming, and launches herself into my arms, a wild grin plastered to her face. She hugs me and pets my arm. It turns out Sparky has seen her every year for the past 15 years, every Erev Rosh Hashanah, but never planned. He doesn't know her name, just knows her as the somersault girl, because that's how he met her when she was little, somersaulting down the hill by the Baal Shem Tov's well. We hug and babble in fake Ukrainian and fake English, while the two older babushkas, grandmothers, she was sitting with, titter behind their hands in the soft mid-afternoon glow. We continue walking. My companions are trading jokes and laughs. I lag behind, photographing every photographable moment. Every moment is deeply photographable. I feel my soul expand, and it feels gorgeous, glorious, like it knows this place, this house, that corner. Maybe this was where I lived before. Then I hear a bush beside me ringing. I hesitate. The bush keeps ringing. Is God calling me on a phone from inside a bush in Medzhybizh? I call out to the others and fish around, carefully pulling out a new iPhone while trying not to spook a loose cow munching on a patch of grass nearby. I answer tentatively and am rewarded by an anxious boy yelling, "Hello, hello, this is my iPhone." And I answer, "Yes, yes, I have your iPhone." And he answers, "It's my iPhone." And I say, "Yes, I have your iPhone." We would have continued like that had Meir not taken it from me and brought it to the nearest house, where the babushkas took over the conversation. 2 minutes later, a boy flies down the street on a very small bicycle, yellow hair flapping and blue eyes glowing with relief. "Thank you, misters. Thank you. He's my iPhone." And then rides off into the approaching sunset. We continue. C starts to complain of hunger, and I hand her a bag of potato chips, which are deemed no thank you. We cross a bridge at the confluence of the Southern Buk and the Buzhok rivers, and pass a 16th century castle nestled in the crook of the crossing. Giant stone walls, turrets, the works. Legend has it that the White Lady, murdered just before her wedding night, wanders the castle's walks, mourning the fiancé she never got to call her husband. We hike up a cobblestone street, and Sparky declares that we have earned a break. There are 2 pubs, but one of them is famously anti-Semitic, so we go to the other one, where there are refrigerators full of beer, but the refrigerators are locked. A solidly built babushka suddenly appears from the darkened interior and stares at us silently. "Beer," we ask her in English, and she answers in thickly accented Hebrew. "Ken ish labira esrim shekel." She is not Israeli and not Jewish either, if the cross nestled in her ample chest is anything to go by. She continues speaking to us in Hebrew as we buy the beer, which only comes in a giant 2-liter American Coke bottle. Also, it is warm despite being in a locked fridge. Gold teeth glinting, she takes our money and says, "Toda rabah," while sliding 4 plastic cups across the counter. We sit outside on the pub's patio and drink 2 liters of warm, dark beer, which tastes strangely delicious. Bees gently circle our heads as C looks at me for my approval before pouring herself a cup. I ruminate on the fact that reality is a porous concept. The Tzion is a short distance away. We instinctively quiet, fuzzed by the strong beer on empty stomachs and the pull of the tzaddik, righteous human being. This is my 3rd time by the Baal Shem Tov. Each time the feeling literally overwhelms my body. I get tunnel vision and weak knees, and all I want to do, all I can do, is push my way against the tidal crush of men and stand in a corner and cry tears whose volume and consistency are their own prayer. Maybe the highest prayer I've ever held or offered. As I feel myself being pulled under, I distantly hear Mare trying to make a plan before we separate. "Let's meet back in what, half an hour?" And I hear myself say, "What, half an hour? An hour maybe." And Sparky says, "Bro, look at her. At least an hour. This lady has what to say." And we agree that we will meet back whenever in front of the Poondock selling overpriced sandwiches. I push my way inside the Tzion, trying to pull C along with me. I can feel her tension and my own fleeting tug of wanting her to share my experience before I let go. She can go at her own pace. I can go at mine. The Tzion is full. My heart is fuller. Everything inside and around me is packed, humid, humming, vibrating. I make my body small, find a corner. For some reason, a reason for sure, Telahim 23, the 23rd Psalm, begins to repeat in a loop in my soul and out of my mouth. Even though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Some men are playing guitars. Another one is on flute. It feels both ancient and alive, present, like this has all been happening forever and until infinity. My words spill out in such a way that it feels less like I am praying and more like I am being prayed through. I am wrung out and at peace. I blink my way out of the Tzion and into the most glorious sun setting over ancient tombstones. I find C, who has been exploring the graveyard. She tells me that if she doesn't eat soon, she might actually die and join her distant ancestors in their tombs right here in this cemetery. I go with her to the Poondock, which is another massive men, jostling and elbowing and Israeling over seriously overpriced sandwiches. I am once again the only woman, my 5'1" self stinkily wedged at armpit height in a crowd of dripping spiritual seekers. I want to respect other men's desire not to touch me, but also I need to buy a sandwich before C dies, so I elbow and push back. Omelette sandwich finally in hand, I find C, who is plugged into the only socket in the place and happily posting pictures of our adventure because there is, hallelujah, free Wi-Fi here. I watch her for a minute and marvel at how lucky I am. She is so utterly her own person, bright, funny, and today, if not always, flowing with my go. I leave C inside with her food and charger and Wi-Fi and smoke some cigarettes with Sparky and Mare on the curb as we begin to wonder how we are getting back to Uman. The place is packed and everyone there is headed back, but they all came there in a round-trip cab. We find one driver whose car is empty, but he wants $200 for just the one-way, literal highway robbery. We say no. We ask around. We ask around some more. Everyone's car is full. Somehow, this does not induce panic or despair, just a surreal sense of surrender. Maybe we will sleep there. Eventually, we will get back, hopefully, in time for Rosh Hashanah. One of the men I ask is suddenly like, you know what? Yes, you can all fit in. Space for 4 extra people, no problem. We have a minibus. We marvel at our luck. Yalla! But are you sure there's space for 4 extra people? And so we find ourselves on a tricked-out, leather-seated minibus packed with French men in various states of exhaustion and ecstasy. It turns out they didn't really have 4 extra seats, just 3. So we take turns offering to sit on the floor and are rebuffed by our hosts. Eventually, one man huffs off the bus, declaring he did not sign up for this. People are going to sit on the floor? The floor? And so the 4 of us offer to get off the bus, but the others insist we sit. We are their guests. And the one who stormed off? He is, how do you say, a drama king, a drama queen. He will find his way back. And we're off. C and Mare continue their banter, which is top tier, even if I don't remember what they were chatting about. Eventually, C plugs in her headphones and drifts off into a true crime documentary on Netflix about a mother catfishing and cyberbullying her daughter. Even though I can't hear the show, I find it amusing looking at her facial expressions as she digests the latest twists. Sparky and Mare start learning a Rebbe Nachman book. I chime in from time to time, as does the man sitting in front of us. 2 hours later, I make a motion to please stop. For the love of all things good and holy, I am so full of Baal Shem Tov water, I cannot hold it in anymore. We tumble out at a gas station, and while most gas station bathrooms here are literally holes in the ground outside, this one has indoor plumbing. I buy an industrial-sized bottle of vodka to pass around. Emptied and refueled, we take off again, this time more lubricated and even more hilarious than before. It is now midnight-ish, though time has long since ceased to hold inherent meaning. Someone at the front of the bus says we should swing by Rebbe Natan. After all, it is Erev Rosh Hashanah, and it is not that much farther out of the way. Everyone yells Yalha and has another l'chaim, another toast. We arrive at Rebbe Natan, the only one of Rebbe Nachman's disciples who thought to record his teacher's words for posterity. In contrast to the warm day, the night is freezing and the sky is like a tray in the Diamond District, thousands of lights reflecting across a pitch black velvet. We need to climb a lonely mountain to reach the Tzion. But first we do some more shots of vodka, l'chaims all around. Rebbe Natan is relatively empty compared to Uman or the Baal Shem Tov. And there is an actual women's section, breath floating in front and sweat evaporating off. C and I enter and join the voices of the men on the other side of the curtain who are singing for the return of the hostages. For the first time, C cracks open and cries. The smell of fresh mountain air and marijuana surround us as we descend the mountain an hour later. We finish the rest of the vodka and cram back into the bus. It's almost 3 a.m. when we roll back into Uman. C asleep on one of my shoulders, Mer on my other. We peel ourselves off and shamble up to the apartment. Mer and Sparky make plans to keep learning and then go to the mikveh at Netz. And if I wasn't already keenly aware of how I am close to being in the club, but only just this close, this zetz, this blow, makes my heart break a little. Because, of course, I am not part of the boys' club, no matter how much I want to keep the party going, no matter what I have to contribute. There are some parts of this life that are not my part as a woman. Of course, I have parts that are not their parts, and there is balance in the world, but sometimes I do wish something. I wonder what it might be like to be a woman and a full member of the club. We are all intensely aware that we have been through something bonding and beautiful, and as we part until the next day, which has already begun, we say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This was amazing. It was so amazing. Thank you, thank you. C and I collapse in bed, and we fall asleep almost immediately. A vision comes to me in my dream. The third temple is descending, and at the same time disintegrating, glittering light particles floating apart and drifting across an empty field in Medzhybizh. I am watching the light show, and it's just me, but also simultaneously all the mess I have ever been, and also all the people who stood at Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, and all the people who stood in Bere and near Oz, and all those who will stand after us. The Baal Shem Tov appears to me, to the me I am now, and talks to me in the sweetest voice like he's telling me the most intimate inside joke in the world. It's so funny that you all think you need the third temple. The world has never been in tikkun, repair. That's the whole point of this world. He leaned over and confided in my ear. The light is in you. You are the people with the true word of the glory of God in your mouths. And all of us there in the field opened our mouths, and the glitter particles went in, and we breathed them out, in and out in one long continuous cyclical light particle breath. I wake up after 3 hours filled with joy, calm and hopeful, and life feels sweet with promise, like the smell of cinnamon and sugar melted together. C is still asleep, one arm flung over her head. I lie there in the dark for a few minutes, listening to the world breathing. And I think, maybe this is what the night before creation must have felt like. Chaos, beauty, possibility, trembling on the edge of something new. You just heard The Night Before Creation, or Midnight in Medzhybizh, by Idit Miriam Codish. She had mentioned kibbutz, Ba'eri, and near Oz in the story. And as you most likely know, those were both October 7th massacre sites. Anyhow, thank you so much for listening. It means so much. Anyone who would like to reach out to Before the Page, that's simple enough. Just go to beforethepage@gmail.com, just how it sounds, spelled just how it sounds, beforethetepage@gmail.com. Until the next, be well.